So here's the story of how I lost everything, only to find myself a year later. And when I say everything, I mean everything. House, car, jewelry. He even took back the gifts he'd given me. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Emily. I'm 32, and up until last year I thought I had my life all figured out. I married my college sweetheart, Matt, a charming, successful lawyer with a smile that could light up a room. We had this perfect life, or at least that's what I thought. We lived in this gorgeous house in the suburbs, a white picket fence, a manicured lawn, the whole American dream package. Matt was always the life of the party, the guy everyone loved. He was my best friend, my confidant, the man who promised me forever. Then everything fell apart. It was about a year ago when I first sensed something was off. Matt was coming home later and later, always with some excuse about work. He was distant, more interested in his phone than in me. I tried to ignore the growing pit in my stomach, the nagging feeling that something was wrong. But then I found the texts. You know how it is when you have a gut feeling, right? So one night, after he'd passed out drunk on the couch, I went through his phone. I didn't want to do it, but I needed to know. And there they were, messages from some woman named Lisa. Explicit messages. Loving messages. My heart dropped. I felt like I was drowning. I confronted him the next morning, and he didn't even deny it. He just looked at me with those cold blue eyes and said, maybe we should get a divorce, like it was just that simple, like he was talking about the weather or what to have for dinner. I was too shocked to cry, too numb to feel anything. Matt left that day and didn't come back. He moved in with Lisa, and I was left alone in the house that now felt too big, too empty. What happened next was like something out of a bad Lifetime movie. Matt hired the best divorce lawyer money could buy, one of his old friends from law school. I got served with papers that left me reeling. In a matter of weeks, I lost everything. The house, the car, the joint savings account. Even the gifts he had given me during our marriage, he took them all back. I was left with nothing but my clothes and a few pieces of furniture. And he was smug about it, too. I'll never forget the look on his face the last time I saw him in court, as he walked out with that gold watch he'd once given me as a birthday present. The same watch I'd found the receipt for in Lisa's texts. I didn't even have the energy to fight. I moved into a small, dingy apartment on the other side of town, with peeling paint and neighbors who played loud music until 3 a.m. every night. It was a far cry from my old life, but at least it was mine. That's where things stood. I was alone, broke and devastated. Matt was living his new life, probably thinking he'd gotten the last laugh. Little did he know his past would soon come back to haunt him. I spent the first few months in that apartment crying myself to sleep. I couldn't eat, couldn't think, couldn't function. My life had fallen apart so quickly, like a house of cards. The betrayal, the loss, it was all too much. I had never felt so alone. My friends tried to be there for me, but most of them were Matt's friends too, and slowly they faded away. It's funny how people pick sides even when you don't want them to. But then, one day, something in me snapped. I remember it clearly. It was a cold, rainy morning, and I was lying on my lumpy mattress, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, feeling sorry for myself. I hadn't showered in days, and there were takeout containers piling up on the kitchen counter. I felt like a ghost, like I was fading away. And that's when it hit me. I could either let Matt win, let him destroy me, or I could pull myself together and start over. So I got up. I took a shower, cleaned my apartment, and threw away all the junk food I'd been binging on. I got a job as a receptionist at a local gym. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Every day I forced myself to go to work, to smile, to be polite to the customers, even when I felt like crying. It was hard, so damn hard. But slowly, things began to change. Working at the gym, I got a free membership, and I decided to use it. I started working out every day after my shift. At first, it was just to pass the time, to distract myself from the pain. But then, something amazing happened. I started to feel stronger, both physically and mentally. It was like every drop of sweat was washing away the hurt, the betrayal, the anger. I was getting my life back, step by step. About 6 months after the divorce, I met Josh. He was a personal trainer at the gym, tall, with dark hair and kind eyes. At first, he was just someone I chatted with during my breaks, but soon we started talking more. He had this easygoing way about him that made me feel comfortable. He never pried, never asked about my past, just made me laugh and feel human again. One night, after a particularly hard day, he found me crying in the locker room. I tried to hide it, but he wouldn't let me. He just sat with me, didn't say anything, just let me cry. And that was the moment I realized that maybe, just maybe, I could trust again. That maybe not all men were like Matt. Josh and I started dating. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, more like a slow, steady build, a warm comfort that I didn't know I needed. He made me feel safe, valued. He didn't care about my past or what I had lost. He was more interested in who I was now, who I was becoming. With him, I started to believe in myself again. A few months later, something incredible happened. I was at work when I got a phone call from a lawyer's office. Apparently, Matt had made some serious mistakes with his finances, tax evasion, embezzlement, you name it. They were freezing his assets, and because we were still technically married when some of these things happened, I was entitled to a settlement. A big one. Suddenly I had money again, more than I'd ever had, even when Matt and I were together. I didn't know what to do with it at first. I mean, what do you do when you go from having nothing to having everything? But then I remembered how I'd felt when I lost everything, and I knew I wanted to help others. So I started a charity for women who were going through divorces, helping them get back on their feet. I was rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I had a new apartment, a new love, and a new purpose. I was finally happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in years. But just when I thought the past was behind me, Matt came back into my life, and everything turned upside down again. It was a sunny afternoon when I saw him again. I was at a small cafe, sipping my coffee and going over some paperwork for my charity. Life was good and I felt like I was on top of the world. I'd gotten into the habit of spending my Saturday afternoons at this cafe, enjoying the peace and quiet, the simple joy of being alive. And then, out of nowhere, I heard his voice. Emily. I looked up, and there he was. Matt. My ex-husband, standing right in front of me, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past 12 months. He had dark circles under his eyes, his hair was disheveled, and he'd lost weight. He didn't look like the confident, smug man who'd walked out of that courtroom a year ago with my life in his hands. Matt, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, what are you doing here? He hesitated for a moment, then sat down across from me without asking. I need to talk to you, he said. His voice was different, softer, almost pleading. I made a mistake, Emily. A huge mistake. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. Oh, now you think it was a mistake? Which part? Cheating on me. Taking everything I had, leaving me with nothing. You're going to have to be more specific, Matt. He flinched at my words, looking genuinely hurt, which was almost laughable. He'd never cared about my feelings before. All of it, he said quietly. Leaving you, divorcing you. Lisa, it was all a mistake. She left me, you know. As soon as the money dried up, she was gone. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. So, you're here because you're broke and alone. Not because you're sorry. No, Emily, it's not like that, he insisted, reaching out to touch my hand. I pulled it away. I've been thinking about us, about what we had. I was such an idiot. I had everything and I threw it away. Please, Emily, give me another chance. I miss you. I miss us. I sat there, staring at him, feeling a strange mix of emotions. A year ago, this might have been what I wanted to hear. I might have taken him back, grateful for any scraps of affection he was willing to throw my way. But now? Now I saw him for what he really was. "Matt," I said, my voice calm, steady, "there is no us anymore. There hasn't been for a long time. I've moved on. I'm happy now, without you." He looked stunned, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're seeing someone else." "Yes, I am, and even if I weren't, it wouldn't matter. You and I, we're done. You made sure of that." He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "You know what the funny thing is, Matt? I should be angry. I should hate you. But I don't, because losing you was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to find out who I really am, to be stronger, better. So thank you for that." He looked like he'd been slapped. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered everything he'd done, and any pity I might have felt vanished. "Now, if you'll excuse me," I said, gathering my things, "I have a life to get back to." I stood up and walked out of the cafe, leaving him sitting there. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But Matt wasn't done yet. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. And I was right. Because a week later, he showed up at my apartment with a desperate plea and a confession that would change everything. I hadn't thought about Matt much after our encounter at the cafe. Seeing him like that, broken and desperate, had been strangely liberating. I'd spent so long feeling like the victim, but now I realized I had the power. He was the one who'd lost everything, not me. I was focused on my charity work, on my relationship with Josh, on building a future that had nothing to do with my past. I'd nearly convinced myself that Matt was just a bad chapter in my life, something I'd closed the book on for good. But then, a week later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Matt standing there, looking worse than before. His clothes were rumpled, his face unshaven. He had the look of a man who hadn't slept in days. My first instinct was to slam the door in his face, but something in his eyes stopped me. There was a desperation there, a raw, pleading look that made me pause. "Matt, what do you want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice cold and detached. "Please, Emily, just hear me out," he said. "I need your help." I sighed, crossing my arms over my chest. "Why would I help you? After everything you've done, you really think you can just show up here and ask for my help?" "It's not about me," he said quickly. "It's about you. About us. Emily, there are things you don't know, things I never told you, and you need to know them now. Please, can I come in?" I hesitated, every instinct telling me to say no, but there was something in his voice, a genuine fear that made my curiosity win over my caution. I stepped aside and let him in, closing the door behind him. We stood in my small living room, the air between us thick with tension. "Talk," I said, not bothering to offer him a seat. I wasn't planning on making this a long visit. He ran a hand through his hair, looking like he was struggling to find the right words. "Emily, when we were married, there were things I did, things I got involved in that weren't exactly legal. The money, the lifestyle, it wasn't all from my job. I got involved with some people who are dangerous. I was in over my head, and I didn't know how to get out." My heart began to race. This wasn't what I'd expected to hear. "What are you talking about, Matt?" He took a deep breath. "I was laundering money for some very powerful people. It started small, just a favor for a friend, but then it got bigger. I couldn't stop, Emily. I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me. They threatened me. They threatened you." I felt like the ground was slipping out from under me. "You're saying you stayed with me to protect me? Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No, you don't understand," he said urgently. "I left you to protect you. When things started to unravel, when the authorities got involved, I thought if I left, they wouldn't see you as a threat. I thought they'd leave you alone if you had nothing to do with me." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words. "You left me with nothing. You destroyed my life. How was that protecting me? I had to make it look real, Emily, he said, his voice breaking. I had to make sure they believed I didn't care about you, that you meant nothing to me. It was the only way to keep you safe. But now they know I still care. They know I've been trying to get out. They've been watching me, and they've seen me trying to come back to you. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean, they've been watching you? He looked at me with hollow eyes. They're coming after you, Emily. I tried to fix things, but it's too late. They know you're the only thing that matters to me, and they'll use that against me. You have to leave. You have to get out of here. Go somewhere they can't find you. I stared at him, my mind racing. This was too much to take in. A year ago, Matt was just a cheating husband who'd left me for another woman. Now he was telling me our whole marriage had been a lie, a cover for some criminal operation. And now my life was in danger because of him. I don't believe you, I said, my voice shaking. Why should I believe anything you say? Because it's the truth, he said desperately. I know I've lied before, but this is real. I can prove it. Please, Emily, you have to trust me. Just this once. I didn't know what to think, what to feel. My whole world was turning upside down again, and I didn't know who to trust. But one thing was clear: if what Matt was saying was true, I was in serious danger. And if it wasn't true, then Matt was even more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. I stood there in my living room, staring at Matt, my mind racing. How much of this was true? Could I believe anything that came out of his mouth? My instincts screamed at me to kick him out, to call the police, to do anything but trust him. But there was a look in his eyes, a desperate sincerity that made me hesitate. What do you expect me to do? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Come with me, he said immediately. I've got a safe house set up. You'll be safe there until I can figure out a way to get these people off our backs. We can leave tonight. I shook my head, disbelief mixing with anger. You think I'm just going to drop everything and run off with you? After everything you've done to me? You really think I'm that stupid? Emily, please, he pleaded, stepping closer. This isn't about us anymore. It's about your life. These people don't play games. If they think they can use you to get to me, they will, and they won't hesitate to hurt you. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm begging you. Don't do this for me, do it for yourself. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to get out and never come back, but there was a part of me, a small, terrified part, that believed him. What if he was telling the truth? What if my life was really in danger? I had built a new life, a good life, and I wasn't ready to give it all up. But I wasn't ready to die either. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Give me a minute, I said. I need to think. I turned and walked into my bedroom, closing the door behind me. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd memorized the moment I got involved with Matt again. Josh's number. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, it's me, I said, keeping my voice low. I need you to come over, now. There was a pause, then his calm, steady voice came through. What's wrong, Emily? Matt's here. He says I'm in danger, that there are people after me. I don't know what to believe, but I need you here. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Josh said, his voice firm. Stay calm, and don't let him leave. I hung up and took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I couldn't trust Matt, but I trusted Josh. If anyone could help me figure out what was really going on, it was him. I walked back into the living room, trying to keep my face neutral. Okay, I said. I'll go with you. But I need to grab a few things first. Matt looked relieved, nodding quickly. Of course, we need to move fast, though. The sooner we get out of here, the better. I walked to the hallway closet and grabbed my coat, stalling for time. I needed to keep him here until Josh arrived. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I was walking a tightrope, one wrong move away from disaster. Just as I was zipping up my coat, there was a knock at the door. Matt tensed, his eyes flicking towards me in suspicion. "Who is that?" I forced a smile. "Probably just a delivery. I order a lot of stuff online." I walked to the door and opened it, relief flooding through me when I saw Josh standing there. His expression was calm, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He was ready for anything. "Hey, babe," he said, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. He looked at Matt, his face carefully neutral. I didn't know we had company. "Josh, this is Matt," I said, my voice steady. "Matt, this is Josh. He's my boyfriend." Matt's face twisted into a sneer. "You didn't waste any time, did you?" "I moved on," I said simply, "something you should try doing. But right now we have more important things to worry about." Josh turned to Matt, his expression hardening. "Emily tells me you think she's in danger. Care to explain?" Matt glared at him, but he answered, "It's true. I got involved with some dangerous people, and now they're after her. I'm trying to protect her, but we need to leave. Now." Josh crossed his arms, his stance unyielding. "And how do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know this isn't some ploy to get her back?" Matt opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "I have an idea," I said, looking at Josh. "Let's call the police. If what Matt says is true, they'll be able to help. If not, well, then we'll know." Matt's face paled. "No police, Emily. You don't understand, these people have connections everywhere. If they find out the cops are involved, they'll come after you even harder." Josh glanced at me, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "How about this?" he said, turning back to Matt. "You give us the names of the people you're involved with. We'll do some digging, find out if you're telling the truth. If you are, we'll consider your plan. If not, you're on your own." Matt looked like he was caught in a trap, his eyes darting between us. "I can't. They'll kill me if they find out I talked." Josh stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "If you don't talk, I'll make sure you go down for everything you've done. Money laundering, tax evasion, all of it. And I guarantee the people you're so afraid of will find you in prison." Matt stared at him, his face white with fear. Finally, he broke. Okay, he said, his voice trembling. "I'll tell you everything. Just promise me you'll protect her." Josh nodded, his expression grim. "You have my word. But if you're lying, I'll make sure you pay." Matt took a deep breath, then started talking. He told us everything, the names, the places, the deals. As he spoke, I felt a cold chill settle over me. This was real. All of it. My life was in danger, and the man I had once loved was at the center of it. When he was done, Josh turned to me, his eyes filled with resolve. "We're going to get through this, Emily. I promise. But you need to trust me." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I trust you." As I looked at Matt, I realized something. Despite everything, I didn't hate him. I felt sorry for him, trapped in a web of his own making. But I couldn't let that sympathy cloud my judgment. I had to protect myself, protect the life I'd built. We spent the next few hours making plans, deciding what to do next. Matt would stay with us until we could figure out a safer place. Josh would make some calls, pull in favors from his contacts. We were in a dangerous game, one that could cost us everything. But I wasn't the same woman I had been a year ago. I was stronger now, smarter. I wasn't going to let fear control me. I was going to fight, to take back my life. And with Josh by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm wasn't over, but for the first time I felt like I could see a way through. And no matter what happened, I knew one thing for certain: I would survive.